Namaskar and good morning to all of you. Let's start the class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhuvaswaha, Tatsavitra Vareneyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Astoma Satgamya. तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्या मृत्योर्मा अमृतम गम्या ओम सेना भवतु सेना भुनक्तु सवीर्यं कर्वावहि तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्वेषावहि ओम शांति 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 ओम. विवेकचूड़ामणि. We ended our last week's class with verse number 401. And I think in some of the books it could be 400, I don't know. Let me just tell you how it starts. Drishtri, darshan, drishyadi. That is the verse. So in that one, Adi Shankaracharya is saying, in the one reality, which is without the seer, the seeing and the seen, etc., which is the changeless, formless, absolute, how can there be any diversity? Okay. So where there is no distinction between these, in that which is the substratum of all of these, so it's like a seeming distinction, but there's no distinction. In that changeless, formless, absolute reality, how can there be any polarity? Okay. So what we are studying is God is everywhere. There's only one God, Brahma, everywhere. There's no place where this absolute is not. So now let's start the class with the next verse. कल्प नरवह इव अत्यंत परिपूर्ण एक वस्तुनि निर्विकारे निराकारे निर्विशेषे भिदाकुता. Is further explaining this non-dual reality. Kalp arnav iv, like the ocean after the dissolution of the universe, at the end of the kalpa. Kalpa are like the ocean after the dissolution of the universe. Atyant, perfectly. Paripurna ek vastu, in the one reality which is all full to overflowing. Nirvikare, the changeless, no vikar in it. Nirakare, the formless. Nirvisheshe, the absolute or undifferentiated. Bhida, diversity. Kutaha, how can be? So he is telling us to think about it. That in that one reality, which is all pervading and motionless, like the ocean after the dissolution of the universe. Because it's an ocean everywhere, it's a water, nothing but water. Which is the changeless, formless, absolute. How can there be any diversity? It's only one thing everywhere. So he's taking our mind towards this deluge. When there's a water everywhere, how can there be any distinction? Right now we can say that Atlantic water, Pacific water, water of the river, water of the lake, water of the pool. But when it's only water and water, there's no difference which is existing. Unlimited, unconditioned. So that's how the Supreme is. That's how when you reach to that level, transcend all the diversity, it's only reality is pervading. And that reality is without change, without form, which is absolute. So there's no diversity. So this is a bhed abhavam. No perception of polarity. Bhed abhavam. And once we remove the avidya, this is the state we are in. So in the moment of a full apprehension of reality, there is a total annihilation of ignorance, avidya. And this is brought out in the next verse. Tejasi iv tamha yatra pralinam भ्रांति कारणम अद्वितीय है परे तत्व है निर्विशेष है भिदा कुता. Tejasi. Tejasi means into light. Iv means like. Tamaha, darkness. Yatra means there. Pralinam is dissolved. Bhranti karnam, the root of delusion, the cause of falsehood. Advitya, which is non-dual. Pare tatvehe, in the supreme reality. See, par is always about the supreme. Par is lower, par is higher. Nirvisheshe, the absolute. Bhida, diversity. Kutaha, how can be? So again, he is forcing us to think about it with this question. How can there be any diversity in the supreme reality, which is non-dual and absolute, where the very root of delusion dissolves like darkness into light? We all know when the sun is up, there's no darkness. It just dissolves, rolls away. That's how this ignorance rolls away. So how can there be polarity in the infinite? How can there be differences in the changeless? How can there be distinctions in the formless? Because distinctions are only in the form. Like if we have a form of a body, sure, there's just distinctions. Hands look different than the feet. The eyes look different than the nose. Because there's a form. But in the formless, which we are, there's no distinction. How can there be diversity in the absolute? They are all impossible dreams. So once there is light, the darkness is completely lifted. That's what he's trying to tell us. So the same way, when the ignorance has lifted, reality must rise in our experience. So avidya is removed with the apprehension of truth. Then in the next verse he says, ekatmake pare tatve bhed varta katham vaset sushuptahu sukh matrayam bheda ken avlokita. Ek atma ke pare tatve, in the one supreme reality, param tattva, supreme reality. Bhed varta, talk of distinction or talk of the differences. Katham, how? Vaset, can be there. Sushupto, in the deep sleep. Sukh matra yam, which is all happiness. Bhedaha, diversity. Ken, by whom? Avlokita, is observed. In the one, the supreme reality, how can there be any talk of diversity? Who can ever observe any diversity in the total bliss of a deep sleep? So even in the deep sleep, we feel only bliss. You're all familiar with the three states of consciousness, right? Jagrat, Swapana, and Sushupti. Over here, Sushupti is talking about. In the Jagrat, we see the distinctions. Wakeful state, we see the forms. In the dream, we see the forms in our dream. That's a swapan. But in sushupti, that's a deep sleep without the dreams. And that's why we feel blissful. Every night, if we had some deep sleep, we feel very rested in the morning. We say, I slept well. So that's what he's talking about. He's giving us an analogy over here. Even in the sushupti, you feel that. So that state is pure, which has no other thing in it but itself. Nothing else in there. So in the state of supreme consciousness, there are no other experience. There cannot be any experience of the objects because they all merge into the infinite. See, normally we talk about kshetra and kshetragya. In Bhagavad Gita, there is a whole chapter on the kshetra and kshetragya vibhag yoga. Kshetra is the field. Kshetragya is the knower of the field. So when they become one, that is a samadhi state. There's no distinction. So he's just giving us only an analogy over here that in deep sleep, there's only one experience, sheer bliss. That experience is one without a second. All is bliss. So when we have risen to that level, a samadhi state, it's all blissful. See, this sushupti state, we go into it unconsciously. But samadhi state, we reach consciously. There's a big difference. Samadhi state. Let's look at next one. Na hi asti vishwam par tattva bodhat sadatmani brahmani nirvikalpe kaltreya na api ahi ikshitaha gune na hi ambu bindu mrig trishnikayam. Na means not, he means indeed. Asti, there is. Vishwam, the universe. Par tattva bodhat, realization of the supreme truth. Sad atmani. Sad atmani is the quintessence of existence. Sad atmani. Brahmani nirvikalpe, in the absolute Brahma. Kal treye, in the three periods of time. Okay. Present, past, and future. Three period. Na api, never. Ahi, the snake. Ikshita is seen. Gune, in the rope. Nahi, never indeed. Ambu bindu, a drop of water. Mrig trishnikayam, in the mirage. Even before realization of the supreme truth, the universe does not exist in the absolute Brahma. Okay? We think that universe is existing. He says it does not. So in the absolute sense, we are talking about here. So even before realization of the supreme truth, the universe does not exist in the absolute Brahma, the quintessence of existence. Never in the three periods of time is the snake in the rope, nor a drop of water in the mirage. Throughout the scripture, he has been bringing this analogy, rope and snake, and water, the mirage in the desert. So what he is saying over here, once the supreme truth is gained, this world can never be. But that world was never there. So once you are awakened to this reality, avidya cannot be there. The same way he says the serpent was never actually there. Snake was never there in the rope in the past, nor it is there in the present, and nor shall it be there in the future. It's only a superimposition. It's only your ignorance thought that snake is there. Actually, it's not there. So rope is ever a rope. So never has it been a serpent at any time. You cannot say that it was there and I removed it. No, it was never there. It was only an illusion. So if you see a serpent in a rope, it's only because of your ignorance of the rope. And the same way, another analogy he's giving, that never can there be even a tiny drop of water in the mirage. Okay, there's no water at all. It seems like water, but there's no water. So similarly, he says in Brahma, there can never actually be a universe of names and forms. It's only an illusion. It's only a vidya. Okay, again and again, he's telling us that. And we need to experience it with the sadhana. That also he keeps telling us. Maya matram idam dvaitam advaitam paramarthata iti brute shruti sakshat sushuptahu anubhuyate. Maya matram, mere maya. Idam dvaitam, this duality. Idam means this, dvaitam is a duality. Advaitam, non-dual. That means alone truth. Paramartha, in reality. Iti means thus. Brute, declares. Shruti, the scripture. The primary scripture. Sakshat, directly. Sushuptau, in deep sleep. Anubhuyate, is experienced. He says the scriptures directly declare that all duality is nothing but Maya. The reality alone is the absolute truth. Such also is the experience in a deep sleep. Maya matram idam dvaitam. So this pluralistic phenomena that we recognized is only an illusion, Maya matra. And then he says, Advaitam paramarthata. The ultimate reality is one without a second. These are very popular sayings among the philosophers. Maya matram idam, Advaitam paramarthata. Brahm alone is the perceived world. What we see is only a projection. This is the declaration of the Upanishads also. That's why he used the word Shruti over here. And not only that declaration, it's also the direct experience. Okay, so this is what we will experience. And he says right now in your Sushupti state, you do experience. There's nothing over there, no object, no forms, but you feel blissful. There's no form even in your mind at that time because you have transcended the mind also. In our wakeful state, we go towards the objects and the situations because to find some bliss, but it's not there. So he says in Sushupti, in deep sleep, you experience the absence of polarity. Because if the world was true, it should be available to you at that time too. that is available at all times is called the truth. It's not available in the Sushupti state, so it's not true. So that which has a beginning and an end cannot be real, philosophically. Like this body has a beginning and this body has an end. Dream has a beginning and dream has an end. It's not true. It's only a superimposition. It's only a projection. A delusory nothingness is the world of polarity. That's why he called it Maya. Maya matram idam. Then he wants us to do some vichar, atam vichar. He says, Ananyatvam adhishtanat aropyasye nirikshitam pandite rajju sarpadau vikalpaha bhranti jivana. Ananyatvam, that means identity. Ananyatvam, or it means not other than Ananyatvam. Adhishtanat, with its substratum. Aropasya, of the superimposed thing. Nirikshitam, has been observed. Pandite, by the wise person. Pandit. Rajju sarp adau, in the perceptions like snake in the rope, etc. Vikalpaha, the duality. Bhranti jivanam, exists or persists by delusion, due to delusion. Bhranti jivan. So jivan has been given to that particular thing because of the delusion. The wise have observed that the superimposition is identical with its substratum. Just as the rope and the snake. The difference exists only because of the delusion. So that means you cannot superimpose a cow on a rope. They do look a little similar. Rope and snake, they look similar. So we get deluded. So this is what identical over here means. So a projection upon a substratum has no existence apart from its substratum. So the superimposed snake is not separate from the rope. It is not different at all, like Ananya. The chain cannot exist apart from the gold. Pot has no existence independent of the mud or the clay. So the world of phenomena also cannot exist apart from Brahma. This is the point he's trying to make. He says, do contemplate on it. Don't just take my word for it, he says. Contemplate on it. Because we are looking for God all the time. And we say, where is God? The wise person never sees any distinctions in the world because he says Brahma is everywhere. Brahma mayam jagat. This is another very popular saying that it is world. The whole world is Brahma. So this world, no walls over here actually. It's not that here is a Brahma and here is no Brahma. Brahma is everywhere. There's no place where Brahma is not. And we'll see in the next 3 verses, he's trying to express this vichar, this thought. This thought which cannot put into words. In his own ecstasy, he's trying to bring it out to us. The Shankaracharya. So almost like a saying in that samadhi state. You will see that when I read these next 3 verses. Chit mulaha vikalpaha ayam chit bhavehe na kaschan atachitam samadhi pratyag rupehe paratmani. Chit mulaha has its root in the mind. So mind is the root or the source. Mool means root. Vikalpaha, the vikalp is the pluralistic word. I am this chit abhave. When the mind is annihilated, when the mind does not exist, na kaschan, nothing exists. Ataha, therefore, chitam, the mind, and chit is always the deeper part of the mind. Chit. Samadhehi, concentrate. Pratyag rupehe pratmani, in the subjective self, innermost self. Pratyag. The apparent universe has its roots in the mind. So where does it exist? It exists in our own mind and cannot exist once the mind is annihilated. That means once you have transcended the mind, once you have experienced that I am not the mind, therefore dissolve the mind by fixing it on the most subjective supreme self. So first he said this world, phenomenal world does not exist actually. It's a delusion. Now he's telling us, where does it exist? It exists in our mind. And how do we experience the truth? By transcending the mind. And how to transcend the mind? He says by fixing it on the most subjective supreme self. Subjective supreme self is the Atma or Paramatma. This is the sadhana. Because at present, all of us are suffering because of our minds. Restless mind, dirty mind, obsessed mind. Even though we want to get out of the turmoil of this mind, but this same mind, we just keep on turning outward. We keep on gushing into the Maya. And when we gush into the Maya, what does mind bring? Only the filth of the Maya. And it brings more. Then there are more impressions. Then this mind is not pure. Mind is not calm. So over here, that's why Shankaracharya is telling us, get out of this madness. The mind that is running out has to be quietened. Do not allow it to sprout out. Because otherwise, it will give you more impressions, deeper impressions, and poisonous sorrows. We look for the bliss in the outer world, but sooner or later we get tired of it, or it's snatched away from us. But we have a lot of impressions in our mind still. So if you want the pure bliss or the beatitude of Brahm, you have to end this delusion. And in order to do this, he says, quieten the mind in the contemplation of the Supreme Self, which is your innermost core. That's why this use of this word, pratyagarupehe, the innermost core. Turn inward. This is the only method. This is the only way you can get out of this mad world. Sit down consciously. Withdraw your mind as though, just like you withdraw your mind when you're trying to sleep. Withdraw your mind experience that stage. Yogis, they have given us many, many techniques. If we cannot meditate sitting up, this Thursday I'm going to teach you Yoga Nidra. Lie down, but go inward. Try to get in touch with your innermost self, because this is what we need to do. Detach from the outer world, detach from the body, detach from the mind. They have given us techniques after techniques, but it's up to us to follow through though. Shankaracharya ji cannot do it for us. Lord Krishna cannot do it for us. Only we can do it. They have given us enough material. And he says this conscious sleep is called samadhi. Unconsciously we sleep every day and we feel that bliss. But that doesn't stay for too long. That does not burn our sanskars, our impressions, but the samadhi will. So that's why he used this word samadhi. Consciously sleep. There's no non-apprehension, only a complete apprehension of reality. Then there's no doubt left. No doubt. Because that is the actual apprehension. Let's look at next verse also, because I want to go through these 3 verses where he is just talking it out so loudly with such a passion so that we can understand it and we start practicing it too. Kimapi satat bodham keval anand rupam nirupamam ativelam nityam muktam nirihim nirvadhi gagnabhavam nishkalam nirvikalpam hridi kalyati vidwan brahmpurnam samadhau. Kimapi, something. Kimapi. It's almost like a indescribable. Satat bodham, of the essence of eternal knowledge, infinite knowledge. Keval anand rupam, of the nature of pure, complete bliss, nothing else in it. Bliss and bliss and bliss. Nirupamam, unparalleled. Ativelam, beyond limitations. Nitya muktam, or nityam muktam, ever free. Nirihim, free from activity. Activity is always because of desires. So another meaning of this is without desires also. Nirihim. Nirvadhi gagnabham, like the limitless space. Nishkalam, indivisible. Nirvikalpam, absolute. Haridi, in the heart. Kalyati, realizes. Vidwan, the wise person. Brahmapurnam, the infinite Brahma. Samadhau, in samadhi. Again that term samadhi. If we attain samadhi, if we meditate. We meditate if we learn how to concentrate. Okay, it starts with this concentration. Concentration is called what? Dharana. Meditation is called dhyan. Then comes samadhi. So he says through samadhi, the wise person realized the infinite Brahma in his heart as something of the essence of eternal knowledge and complete bliss, which is unparalleled, which is beyond all limitations, which is ever free, which has no activity, and which is indivisible and absolute like the limitless sky. So in samadhi, they found that this is not the outcome of some churning in the mind or the intellect. This is the direct experience. That's what he's telling us. And this experience will be the same. Whether I have that experience or you have that experience or somebody else has that experience. 5,000 years ago or even 5,000 years from now, somebody. This experience does not change. This is the absolute. This is the reality. This is who we are. So during samadhi, the wise person realizes in his heart, what? Eternal knowledge. Eternal knowledge, the nature of that eternal knowledge is bliss. And we cannot explain it, he says, because it's indescribable. Words cannot explain it. Shruti says there is nothing like it. Na tatra pratima asti. There's nothing like it. Anywhere in the range of our experience today. You cannot say that my samadhi, I experienced this. Because normally when we experience this, we see something beautiful. We say that, it's like that. We compare. This place is like that. But this person is like that. We try to compare. This cannot be compared with anything. Because our range of experience is all based upon the Maya. This is beyond Maya, called a Maya Atit. It is incomparable, nirupam. It transcends all limits, ati velam. It is state which is ever free, no boundary. Never has it ever been limited. It is a state where there are no activities, physical, mental, or intellectual, because these are the ways we do the activities. Such a state is called niriham. It is a state unconditioned by place, time, or other things. Kalataha, deshataha, vastutaha, antaha shunyam. It is a limitless state, nirvati, like space. A factor which is unconditioned by time, place, or objects can only be compared with the space. This is the closest we can come to. Therefore, Shankaracharya ji uses the simile Gaganabha, like space. And Nishkalam, which doesn't have any parts, because form can have parts. Formless cannot have any parts. Not only has it no limbs, it also has no thought disturbances. Nirvikalpam, no vikalapa. And then he says Brahmpurnam. So in samadhi, a wise person comes to experience this state of complete and full reality. No doubts left. This becomes the experience. Let's do one more where he's still talking about this experience of ecstasy. Prakriti, Vikriti, Shunyam, Bhavanatit Bhavam, Samrasam, Asamanam, Man Sambandha Duram, Nigam Vachan Siddham, Nityam Asmat Prasiddham, Haridi Kalyati Vidwan Brahmpurnam Samadhav. Prakriti, Vikriti, Shunyam, devoid of cause and effect. Prakriti and Vikriti. Bhavana Tit Bhavam, as the reality beyond all imagination, all fancies, or beyond comprehension. Some rasam, as homogeneous. Some means same ras. Same ras, homogeneous. Asamanam, matchless. Man sambandha duram, beyond all proofs. Proofs means of knowledge. So no matter which means you use, it's beyond that. Nigam vachana siddham, established by the declarations of the scriptures. Nityam, always eternally. Asmat prasiddham, self-established. Haridi, in the heart. Kalyati, realizes. Vidwan, the wise person. Brahm Purnam, the infinite Brahm, Samadhav in Samadhi. He says through Samadhi. So in all these verses, he used the word Samadhi. So Samadhi is the technique. So through Samadhi, the wise person realizes the infinite Brahm in his heart. It's right here. As devoid of the concepts of cause and effect, as the reality beyond all imaginations, as homogeneous and matchless, beyond all proofs, established by the declarations of the scriptures, always ingrained in us. So having expressed what is inexpressible in the previous verses, he gives us more hints. Another brilliant set of words over here. Prakriti is matter, and its various modifications are Vikriti. Okay, that's what Prakriti, Vikriti, Shunyam. This is the state where there's neither a matter. Matter is all these basic elements which we see, that is a matter. Earth, water, fire, right? Air, space, that's all matter. And nor its various modifications. That's a Vikriti. So Prakriti or a Vikriti. So this is a state transcending all the equipments and their experiences. And it is beyond all intelligence. Bhav atit bhavam. That means a state which lies beyond the comprehension of the intellect. If somebody says, no, I am so intelligent, I have had so many degrees, that is all intellectual. This is something we need to experience. It's beyond the intellect. So the experience of the infinitude in the past, its experience in the present, and its experience to come in the future is the same, all periods of time. I was being interviewed by a couple of ladies yesterday. They are doing their higher studies. They wanted to know about Hinduism. One of their questions was, is the practice of spirituality different in America than in India? I said, it cannot be. Spirit is the same, whether we are in India or over here. Whether a male person is practicing or a female is practicing, no difference. There is no male soul and a female soul. There's no young soul or an old soul. Or souls in America are different than India. Or souls 5,000 years ago, different than now. Same practice. It's called samrasam, whether it's experienced by a Brahman or a non-Brahman, by a sinner or a saint. It is at all times, under all conditions, the same. The experience will be the same. This kind of experience, whether we call ourselves Hindus or Christians or Muslims or atheists, the experience will be the same if the experience of the truth is samrasam. And nothing comparable to it, asamanam. It is without any contact with anything. It is a state which is without any kind of example. You cannot say that it is like this. It's beyond comprehension of the intellect. Cannot be understood by logic. Cannot be perceived by the body. And it is beyond the description. Then the question comes, how can somebody come to understand it? Because these are the equipments given to us, our body, our mind, and intellect. If we cannot use this, what can we do? Shankaracharya ji says that it is established by the declaration of the Vedas. Have faith in the Vedas. Have faith in these sayings. But a student still may doubt because it's not a student's experience yet. So that's why Shankaracharya ji say, in Samadhi you will experience it. So he's confirming here very courageously with this conviction that this is the truth which has been experienced by the wise people. This is an experience that is lived constantly by people like us. Asmat prasiddham. It is experienced by the wise in the Samadhi. In the state of Samadhi, the ego merges into the infinite. The intellect, the dhi of the meditator, equal the sum. That's called a samadhi, where thought currents completely dry up. No fluctuation. And Shankaracharya ji, out of his infinite love for the disciples like us, he tries to indicate in another verse also. We'll see that next week, that what exactly is the state of knowledge in which the person of perfection lives when that person is plunged in the utter meditation. And that's where we will start our next week's class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnase Purnamadaya Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.